On the Fringe with Dan RadioStyle. Hope everybody out there's having themselves a great day. Punisher's back in play. We've got huge things coming up. Two major date ranges are being shared with us. One of them starting today, the 14th, and another one starting next week. There's potentiality of Trump deeming Antifa a terrorist organization. There is a lot that is coming out, and obviously Durham's probes are going to be coming to light soon. So a lot of information is coming. Let's get straight into the Q post. 4686, again, the Punisher. Equal justice under the law as written. And that's what we're working towards here. Transparency and disclosure and accountability of the justice is the only way forward. Future of our republic is at stake. And they're saying this is the equivalent of Watergate times 1,000. I believe it. Now, probably somewhat hyperbolic, a little exaggerated, but you know, Watergate, they make an enormous deal out of it. It was just someone like messing with paperwork inside an office. This, if is true, which I believe it is so much larger, so many more people involved, to the top of the FBI, top of the CIA, all sorts of agencies. The president of the United States was involved in this. This has a lot going on. So they're saying November 14th through the 18th and the 21st through the 21st. Track and follow events. And did Kevin set his alarm clock? A fun little call out to that. Kevin getting some information from a DOJ insider that said, hey, set your alarm, buddy. Some stuff's about to go down. So Punisher coming into play makes me definitely think Durham's coming at this. What's also interesting, tomorrow, the 15th, is supposed to be that White House, invade the White House thing, the 50 days at the White House. And they're going to be there up until the day of the election. That's supposed to start tomorrow, the 15th. So we've got a lot of information that's coming out. And we've got a really sneaky little corn metaphor again that's shared with us here coming up towards the end of these posts. So a lot is going on. And again, nothing specific is being said, nor can it, if you really think about how this has to play out. But we're getting major, major hints. Post 4687, we've got a Twitter post here about Biden. Who benefits the most? We've got to keep this in mind. When you think about the way all these things have played out, and the way they've shut down, the way they've tried to hurt the economy. Again, we've got a slide coming up just next that really breaks it down. But who benefits the most, right? Virus or the election? Lab or nature? Now, there was early stories way back when that suggested there was a vector in there that looked man-made. But again, we're not the experts. I can't say that with any surety. And I doubt the CDC is going to come out and say that. But it has had supposedly some looks to it that made it look man-made. Coincidence or foreknowledge? It's a big question. I wonder, was this part of the 16-year plan anyway, and it just timed out this way? Or is this something they kicked into play because they needed to do what's going to be on this next coming slide? So difficult truths are what this country has to face. We need to, one, accept what's happened, two, fix it, and three, ensure that it never happens again. Not to any sitting president, nor to we the people. We should never, ever have to give up the level of freedoms that we currently have given up. So the Twitter post he shares is, of course, from Mr. Biden. We are not prepared for pandemic. Trump has rolled back progress President Obama and I made to strengthen global health security. We need leadership that builds public trust, focuses on real threats, and mobilizes the world to stop outbreaks before they reach our shores. Now, the only problem that really happens with this is he gets a little check mark because the Washington Post actually said, yeah, no, of 195 countries that were dealing with this pandemic, none of them were ready. So I don't know if what you're saying is true. But again, it's the way they're spinning it, right? This whole thing's happening. We've got to say orange man bad, orange man bad, orange man bad, no matter what happens. Problem is, you start to lead yourself into funny little waters when you start lying or when you start exaggerating information that's not even remotely close to true. And then you get even your crony, Washington Post, comes out and says, I don't know if that's true there, big guy. So we'll see. Now, how do you accomplish the things that are listed here if you think about it? And this is within the context of what we've been discussing, but Post 4688 spells this out beautifully. So first, terminate history-making economic gains made by the President of the United States prior to the election. So all of this great stuff that was happening, all these gains that were happening, how do we get rid of that? How do we stall the U.S.-Chinese trade phase 2 by China time and prevent loss of billions, right? locked new agreement? How do you stall that so the new administration can come in and actually set up the real China deal, the one that's going to favor China and Biden and his family, as opposed to favoring the United States? How do you, three, terminate or hold the POTUS accountable or record attendance, these rallies? How do you stop that? How do you stop this surge of excitement that's happening around the president? Four, protect Biden from embarrassment regarding mental health, whether or not his cognitive decline is actually occurring or not, how to handle these Q&A, these rally attendance, crowd size that he has that are tiny, because no one's showing up for Biden. No one's excited about him. How do you hide that? How do you keep people from seeing that? Five, how do you protect Biden from the Ukraine scandal that him and his son are definitely involved with? How do you protect and shelter this whole Me Too crowd that is coming out? All the Democrats that are basically coming out and saying, I was also, what was it, the Me Too, the molestation one? Sexual allegations, sexual assault. All these people that came out and said, I was a part of that too. How do you create a non-digital pathway to rig the 2020 presidential election to engage 80 million mail-in ballots? Again, how do you, they've locked down the election as of 2018, so you can't do it through the voting machines anymore. Those are not hackable. You can't take advantage of it in any other way. You can't have all these extra people flood the voting booths because he's locked down the border. So what else can you do to try to take over the election? You need to cheat because people aren't going to just vote for you. You've done a very poor job being a good leader of the people. So how do you do that? How do you get this to go on? So you create a non-digital pathway, right, to 80 million mail-in ballots, coordinated, and as early as April and May, right? They've been talking about this for a while. So how do you do this to try to sidestep the election night defeat? No concede. They're talking about that already, right? Nobody's going to concede to losing. And this whole thing is to attempt to do ballot harvesting as well, which they're going to further cheat, right? This whole thing has to do with cheating on such high levels. And it's majorly battleground states are the big problem right now. 9, how do you create division and hatred and fear, primarily trying to scare citizens, senior citizens for that matter, from voting in person on election day? And, senior citizens are a larger portion of the population that tends to vote conservative just in nature. Generally, the older you get, the more conservative you tend to start to lean. So how do you freak out old people specifically so they won't vote in person, but will vote maybe by mail, where you could easily have all these other things kick into play to try to slow that down? 10, how do you create the impression that the country is divided? How do you constantly scream from the loudest mouthpieces and the loudest bullhorns that everybody hates everybody, that there's absolute racism everywhere, that anytime you see a white person, he's obviously looking down on you because that's what white people do? How do you create that level? How do you create propaganda to blame and attack the current administration for economic hardships, death toll, attacks, yada, yada? They keep trying to blame Trump for the riots. They keep trying to blame Trump for the pandemic. They keep trying to blame Trump for all the economic hardships that people are going through when they shut down the economy. Again, it's this thing where you create this big giant smoke screen and then you blame the person who's in office for allowing there to be smoke. There's it's bad for the environment. How could you dare let there be smoke? It's like, that's your smoke screen. What are you talking about? You're crazy. Number 12, change the narrative that the 44 administration, or Obama, was treasonous and corrupt. How do you change that narrative so it's more about how current POTUS, Trump, is failing to deal with the pandemic? How do you isolate faithful from each other and remove the ability to attend church or the house of worship? How do you justify social media censorship using COVID-19 and the World Health Organization claims as primary foundation, right? How do you get people to basically go, yeah, anybody that's saying anything other than what this World Health Organization is saying, we should ban and censor what they're saying because we should only trust the World Health Organization, when we know they were lying to us up front about the severity of this virus, the China virus, as it's been called so much? How do you leave the door open for a constitutional crisis? Delaying the election the way it is? Again, look at all the things. How do you delay public exposure of corruption and accountability and prevent loss or control of power? If you can get the people out of power that are going to bust you, then you don't got to worry about getting busted, do you? So how do you do all these things? How do you avoid delay, loss of U.S. taxpayer trillions due to loss of control or inability to enact corrupt policies and stop sending money overseas? And they disguise it as goodwill and all these other things, but like the Haiti thing, all that money went out there in that Clinton Foundation. Supposedly not a whole lot of it made it to the actual people, but the Clinton Foundation did rather well, supposedly. Again, this is speculation, rumor. I don't have any facts sitting in front of me. So what a lot of the people are talking about. And then we've got 5 more left blank. And I think there's a reason for that. I think they're hinting at that there's still some more steps that they're well aware of. I'm sure the storm the White House is going to be part of that. Turning sporting events into BLM push was one that popped into my head. How about the bumping in cases, the fact that so many people are going to suddenly have this new spike in COVID cases? This is going to happen over the next week or two to scare people back into their houses, back into lockdown. I think they're going to try to continue to support the violence so they can continue to keep that ramped up and keep the streets unsafe and scary for people. And I think they're going to still continue to support this narrative of racism and also Russia. They keep bringing Russia up again, which is really strange because that just seems like a failed attempt. But again, after going through all that, how do you accomplish the above? Think about it. What could you do? Like I was talking to a dude in the store the other day, and I'm like, 2 years ago, you could have told me that in 2 years, the entire economic system's going to be shut down. People will be locked up. They'll be wearing masks everywhere they're going. I'm like, there's no way in a million years I ever would have believed that's possible. Yet, here we are. So how do you accomplish that? It's sort of a rhetorical question, I think, at this point, right? Obviously, the virus seemed to accomplish that. So you release a ... And of course, who is benefiting the most from this? It's very strange. So in 4689, they share a really cool YouTube video, and it's not one that really needs to be watched per se. But what is fascinating about this YouTube video is, one, is it starts like 11 minutes into it. And it's this guy down here at the bottom. He's talking about why they need to enact a curfew. And he starts to get into all the different things they're hearing about that's happening. And one of the key things that they were finding, and they were waiting for confirmation, and they even called it hearsay. And a lot of their little critics here were like, well, I want to see those stories come out. But the thing that really jumped out was this group of people, like Post 4690 really spells out, group of like firefighter type people that are carrying gas cans, supposedly with gas. Again, I'm saying this is speculation, even though here's a picture of people that obviously are Antifa and dressed as firemen and probably doing things. But one of the discussions in that video was about how they are downing telephone poles with chainsaws. So they're taking chainsaws to telephone poles, downing them in the hopes of causing power fires that start from power lines. Now, again, if it starts from fallen poles, that's one thing. But when you look at a burnt pole, you're going to be able to tell it was cut by a chainsaw. So again, they're going to still know it was arson. But I think there's this attempt to try to make it look like it's natural causes and that this is the environment, because that's what everyone, California just called this. The fires are happening because of the environment and the global warming. And that's why California is out of control when we've been having fires in this state for as long as time and history has been there. And yes, we're not cleaning up the forest like we should, yada, yada, all that stuff. But it's very interesting that we've got folks running around that are literally trying to cause fires. Now, I'm not just saying that there's 1 or 2 examples of arson. No, I'm going to actually show a bunch. Q has shared a post with us, and I actually opened up just a bunch, and we'll scan through those really quickly. We're not going to read them, and it's going to be coming up here in a minute, so stay tuned for that. But again, we've got people out there that have got gas cans. They're finding gas cans hidden in places with gas in them. They're finding these people with chainsaws, and obviously they're running around with the Antifa flag. So that's Post 4690, and it's also referencing what's going on in that YouTube video as well. 4691, just a few of our famous friends here, all busted for arson. Like recently, like within the last 4 or 5 days, most of these people are busted for arson. I think maybe 1 or 2 of these guys might have been back a little further. It was one thing I saw in a couple of the stories I opened up, is some of them went back into like May and stuff like that. But that all being said, there's a bunch that are very, very recent. So again, first confirmed photos of the global warming captured. It's global warming, folks. It's not these people that are getting busted lighting matches, going into people's yards with matches. No, it's not that at all. People getting caught lighting the center of the freeways on fire. No, it's not those people at all. Post 4692. Gets into a lot of the interesting stuff about Antifa. Now, one thing, this is twofold, I think, as far as what the information they're presenting to us is meant to do. One, it's meant to show us that there is a ridiculous amount of training of these Antifa people happening all over the place. And Syria seems to be where a lot of it's happening. Again, places where we're pulling troops out of. So we've had all these different camps teaching the Antifa, the same flag, same everywhere. So these guys are getting a lot of this training from these locations. So they're pointing that out to us. But two, I think they're talking about a lot of this for one other reason, which is to say, hey, you know what? We know a lot about your organization. We know a lot about your roots, what you're taught, where you come from, where the money's coming from, who's financing you, why they're financing you, where they're financing from. I think our government knows a great deal about what's going on with Antifa. 4693 continuing the same thing, our 1933 version of the map versus the 2017 version of the flag. I said map, but whatever. So again, just showing the illustration of how similar these two paths are. We went through some slides a couple days ago showing how Nazi Germany was doing the brown shirts and was causing these people to scare people and to intimidate. Literally, just a great, the Gestapo and all the stuff. Just so many similarities. It's like literally a carbon copy of what is happening today. It's exactly what they did back then. 4694, again, just beating the heck into our heads that, hey, guess what? Antifa is actually been around a while, and the same flag, and they're being trained in the Middle East. Know your enemy. Again, I think they're very much trying to say, we know who these people are. Trust us, patriots. Q and intelligence know who these people are. And again, we're going to have that hint coming up where Trump may be considering these guys domestic terrorists or just terrorists in general very soon, which changes the game immensely. So we're going to see how that plays out. 4695, a great, and just thank this person, this wonderful patriot. And I think he's just sharing how awesome, but strength and honor warrior, we stand at the ready always, is a beautiful post. This guy's part of Operation Iraqi Freedom. He was a veteran there. He's got this cool patch with Raytheon, Northrop Grumman. Probably some top secret stuff. Almost looks like a shuttle patch. I don't know what this one's stuck in the middle. 419 Ops and Engineer. Cool. B2 patch. Very cool stuff. Very, very, very. For anybody that's even sort of a remote military nerd or geek. Oh, man, good stuff. Anywho, 4696. This is the one I was excited about. The United States of America will be designating Antifa as a terrorist organization. This was posted, May 31st, 2020. It's being shared again, probably for good reason. Wink, wink, nod, nod. Trump is letting us know something. Now, this one's interesting, and this is the one where if anybody's like, no, it's just a bunch of crap stories that there's people starting fires, that's not true. No, it's global warming. I'm sure of it. That all that violence that they're talking about, people doing these fires, is hyped. At best, it's probably one or two people. 4697 shows a slide of, I don't know, I counted them earlier, it was like 38 stories. Let's just quickly go through a couple of them. Monterey County deputies arrest arson suspect in 2,500-acre Big Sur fire. Arson arrest made after brush fire burns hillside east of Santa Paula. Arsonist arrested in Pablo. Suspect arrested for arson and, wow, you can just block everything in here, huh? Okay, whatever, screw that. There's someone got arrested. I hate that site. Sonoma County deputies arrest alleged arsonist who admitted having a bad day. That's a good reason to burn down someone's, forest. Man arrested on arson allegation in wildlife west of Eugene, deputies said. Update, 14 confirmed arson hotspots in Manta La Sal National Forest. Woman accused of intentionally starting fires on Highway 101. Arson arrest for Chico Marketplace. Parking lot fire. Official seeking person who, you guys suck. I hate this. They don't even let you close that, man. That's just horribleness. Man arrested, blah, blah, blah. You get the point. These are all stories of arson. Global warming. These are all stories of global warming. So again, this is a bunch of crap. And I'm sure there's all sorts of circumstances that come into play. people manually doing this is a big part of it. This one really got me. This is an interesting post. I'm going to go ahead and spend just a moment on this. Not too long, but it's the final post as well. This is good stuff. So Chuck Grassley says, this ear of corn is developed and will soon be ready for harvest. He said this on on Sunday the 13th. Well, corn was always the big thing. We've got pictures of Comey standing in the field. In fact, there was all sorts of places where they misspelled his name as Corny. We've got a number of different other people that had done some corn analogies and talking about the harvest and all these very interesting things. And then Chuck Grassley decides to take it to the next level to a degree. So let's at least hear his little video. It's pretty cool. Let's check it out.
A long time ago, I showed you a developing ear of corn. You can now see that this ear of corn is developed. You can see those little dents in the corn. That means it is mature. Between now and harvest, it's a case of this ear of corn drying down from about 35% moisture now to ideally about 20% of moisture. That's the ideal time to harvest.
So what that means to me, I don't know. I'm not a farmer, so I don't know if that 35% moisture down to 20% moisture, if that's just legit numbers. It could be very much. But I also think that there's a parallel to that. And I think it ties into waiting for the support of BLM and these kinds of things to dip down from 35% of the population down to about 20% of the population. I think that's the direction, because once the support has fallen far enough, once enough people are against BLM, for example, the violence in the street, defunding the police, a lot of these horrible movements that the left are very much behind right now, when that dips down to about 20%, I think that's when harvest happens. Harvest to me seems like that's when the move's going to be made. That's when the roundup happens. That's when like the actual force begins to occur that will basically back up we, the people. So Chuck Grassley is a member of the Republican Party. Grassley served 8 terms in the Iowa House of Representatives and 3 terms in the United States House of Representatives. He has served 3 stints as Senate Finance Committee chairman during the periods of the Republican Senate majority. When Orrin Hatch's Senate term ended on January 3rd, 2019, Grassley became the most senior Republican in the Senate. He was elected president pro tempore of the Senate for the 116th United States Congress, making him 3rd in the presidential line of succession after the vice president and speaker of the House. This was a very interesting part to me because this sort of implies a couple things. What happens if the information comes out that Pelosi's tied up in some stuff? Again, that 20%, 35%, get enough of that moisture out. What happens if there's enough dirt against Pelosi to actually put her in question and thusly make her have to step away or step down? And then he would be next in line to take over the government, which wouldn't be Pelosi, the scavenger, but would be someone that's actually been a pretty stout Republican. I mean, on the NRA, he's got an A rating. I mean, he's pretty much backed Republican stuff his entire history. I mean, the guy's pretty solid. So being next in line after Pelosi was also a major thing that made me wonder, So again, we've got 2 weeks to look for. This week in particular, it's going to be very interesting. And next week is also supposed to be very interesting. Chuck Grassley's talking some very weird corn innuendos again. So who knows what's actually in store? And again, I don't want to speculate or get too far off the reservation, but Q shares stuff for a reason. And when he does, it's wise to take note. And always pretty much, future proves past. We end up seeing something happen that we then very easily can pin back to in the past. We're getting some more great hints right now of future to come. It's going to be exciting coming up the next couple weeks. Remember, see something, say something, stand your ground, make sure you got everything protected. You've got your supplies, your earthquake kit, whatever it is, make sure everything's stocked up because I'm still expecting one more little hiccup. And so just make sure you've got all the supplies you need, paper towels, toilet paper, all that crazy stuff, water, and you should be good. We'll weather this together, folks, but we'll stand strong. We'll stand together, And we'll always remind ourselves, where we go one, we go all. It's On the Fringe with Dan RadioStyle.